All right, friends, it's T-Man. We are back with a new video. It's on JasonBlaha again, bro. We're going to react to the gym lifting, recruiting, fitness gear slaves video. So in this video, Blaha says, social media has distorted the idea of what a natural physique looks like. Yeah, they have. I would agree.
Fake natties have absolutely clouded the reality of what a drug-free physique looks like. Hey everybody, it's JasonBlaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys.
It's kind of funny. I was going to do a video on that myself. I was going to talk about that. Okay.
And you a little bit about this today, but a quick reminder, if you guys would please click like down below, we greatly appreciate it. If you aren't following or subscribed, please do so. And if you would drop me a comment down below the video, if you'd be so kind as to do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much. So let's get over to the topic. I've seen a few people put up stuff, who are drug-free guys, who are just normal guys who get in train, and you'll see these. I trained 12 years, I trained 15 years or whatever, and they look like, fit, in shape guys who to me looks like a guy who works out, right? These are fit people who are in shape. And the internet then, you'll get hate from a bunch of people who are like, oh, you wasted your time. And this person over here, look how they look and they're natural. And it's like, people have delusions, absolute delusions, because they buy into these fake natties who lie to you for money. It's been a big deal. This is something that caused me a lot of problems early on, 12, 13 years ago. I made a big deal out of calling this stuff out. And it's in no way because I am anti-gear or don't think people should do with their bodies as they please. I think everyone, if it's an adult decision they need to make for themselves, an educated decision, and I think, quite frankly, they're too regulated. I think they should be regulated about as much as alcohol. My opinion says.
I just can't figure out why Blaha took up bodybuilding at the age of, I don't know, when did he start? 46? I don't know what, or was it 45? Around the age of 45 or so. He says he's 48 now, I don't know. He started around somewhere at 45. Why did he start at such a late age? I don't know, but whatever. He says he's a power lifter his whole life. He was always against bodybuilding. Remember, it was G for P and all that kind of stuff, bro. He hated bodybuilding. And now all of a sudden he loves bodybuilding and he wants to teach everybody bodybuilding, how to build physiques and stuff all of a sudden. What the heck's going on here?
But by that same token, I don't appreciate people lying who are very clearly on gear. And, it's created an illusion of what's obtainable.
Real bodybuilding is not about building a physique. That is a byproduct. Muscle is a byproduct of bodybuilding. But the perversion of bodybuilding, I think what he's talking about is the people that take drugs. It's a cosmetic look on a stage. And then they even have the balls to call it a sport. They go, the sport. But that is not a sport. You mean it's a sport to take drugs? Like inject yourself with all these drugs and go up on a stage? That's a sport, dude? That makes absolutely no sense. But real bodybuilding is a carryover to other sports. But bodybuilding itself is not a sport. So like I said, the whole physique thing is because a long time ago they had these, these regular people going on stages. They called it bodybuilding, right? And these natural people with these little skinny bodies, right? They lifted a little bit of weight, whatever, the skinny little body. But then steroids came out, and you see a completely different look. You see these people that barely lifted weights or whatever, had these skinny little bodies. And then you have people that look like they got mutated. They took something that gave them a mutation, a weird mutated look. You understand me? It mutated them temporarily taking this drug. So it's a completely opposite look. You see cosmetic and natural and cosmetic, something unusual. See what I mean? Now, I know people are always going to try to compare their physique. They go, well, I'm bodybuilding, so I must be building a physique. And then they're going to try to compare it, like make it look as if, well, it should be looking like a steroid person. Absolutely not. You should not be looking like a person on steroids at all. You should be looking the way a natural person is supposed to look. Of course, you'll have somewhat of a look like something like a steroidal look if you build muscle, right? lower your body fat. Well, what they do is this. Okay, so they try to compete with these steroid people, the natural people. So what they try to do is they try to lower their body fat as low as they could get it, so they could make it mimic that look. You understand, that cosmetic look, because that's part of the look in steroids, having a very low body fat and giving you this muscularity. That's where it's coming out, really, from the low body fat. That's why they call it physique. So yeah, dude.
Attainable, and the people say, well, maybe this one person. Yeah, okay, so you have a 1 in a million statistic.
I mean, that's why they call it aesthetic. They came up with this word, aesthetic physique. He's got an aesthetic physique. But they don't say he's got a bodybuilding physique. You understand? You see the difference? Well, he doesn't have a bodybuilding physique. He's got an aesthetic physique. Oh, is that what it is? So what is an aesthetic physique and what is a bodybuilding physique? A bodybuilding physique means you build muscle. What's an aesthetic physique? It means that you've lowered your body fat to the point where you are trying to mimic somebody on drugs, bro. Get it? You're trying to compare yourself to them, which is insane, but okay.
Genetic outlier, that's really irrelevant. Like, nobody cares, and you shouldn't care. And in fact, it's actually not even beneficial to society in any way to treat them like they're natural. You know why? They have the genes, a rare set of 1 in a million or 1 in 10 million genes, or 100 million genes to look like they might be on
what genes?
Gear from training really hard.
Look like gear? They have 1 in a million genes to look like somebody training like on gear? No, they just lower their body fat. That's why they call it aesthetic physique. You understand me? They don't call it drug physique. They call it aesthetic physique. But then, of course, they're going to use that as well in the fake bodybuilding world with drugs. They're going to say, well, he's got low body fat too, so he's got an aesthetic physique. So they copied that word. See, they just moved it over. Anything that has to do with low body fat, muscularity, it must be an aesthetic physique. But that's not bodybuilding. Something aesthetic that has nothing to do with bodybuilding. That's more like maybe cardio or low calories or whatever. You know, whatever, dude. That's not bodybuilding. You're not building muscle.
When they're not. Okay? The world's actually probably better off if you just classify them as a fake natty. Plus, they have a gene to look like they're on drugs. All right, just saying.
No, they just have aesthetic physique. They have very low body fat to look like they're on drugs, yeah. Okay.
It might as well be for all purposes. People say, but it's not fair to that person. Well, who cares? I could argue it's not fair for a person to be born with 1 in 10 million genetics and give them a huge advantage in life. I could argue that's not fair. But here's...
I guess that's me.
the issue. It really creates a problem if people then accept it. Oh, that...
I was born with the AC3 gene, bro. Get it? I got the AC3 gene. Yeah, man. You know, I never really quite knew that before, but now I realize it. I see it in my sister and myself. We both have the AC3 gene.
It's just normal. Well, it's not normal. It's freakish.
AC3 gene is associated with super strength. Yeah.
But I digress. Back over to the point. And I think one of the big problems we have with that is fake natties putting out lazy garbage training advice. Who have good genetics use trend, and then people are not going to make gains following their nonsense.
Yeah, that's the whole point. These fake influencers is to visually draw you in and then, you know, sell you some crap program. It's like Blaha. He's trying to visually draw you in so he could sell you a program. He wants to be your coach, bodybuilding coach. He's going to take you from dad bod to daddy bod. See? Look at that. Look at that daddy bod. Ooh. Look at Blaha, man. He looks like Mafalda. Jesus, man. He's getting fat again.
I mean, look at that whole UCETA guy who I called out for getting hurt and then just stopped training. His training is trash dumpster. No one will ever get big without drugs on that. And he obviously uses trend. But do you see the problem?
Well, nobody will get big using UCETA's training regime because it's conventional. It has ended. It's called newbie game. Yeah, he's adapted. It's crap training for building muscle.
He built a big following doing that, promoting a training style that if the rest of you did, you're never going to look like you lift ever. if you do his training style at the level of intensity and work that he promotes and does,
I will agree with Blaha.
you're going to spend 5 years doing it and never look like you lived if you don't use the drugs he used. You're just not.
Yeah. And also, if you use the 5x5 program, the ice cream program by Blaha, everybody who's used it has failed, has never built their body, because that's not what builds bodies. Get it? That program is shit. And if you use it, you're going to fail unless you take drugs. Yeah.
So back over to the point. Every time I bring up the fat-free mass index, people say, "Well, that's not."
If you use any of Blaha's training, you're going to fail. You're never going to build your body doing any of this, what he's doing here. Any of these things that he does in his garage here, any of them, you're going to fail, dude. I guarantee it.
Realistic. That's not reality, because there's more people out there. But again, irrelevant.
Look at Blaha. He's failed, and that means you all are going to fail just like him, because he's a failure, dude.
So when we talk about the fact...
Look at him. Look at him posing, bro. This is funny. Check him out. Yeah, okay.
Free mass index studies that were done by researchers.
True.
Look, it's not.
So when we talk about the fat-free mass index studies that were done by researchers, those studies were on national...
Hey, his boobs are starting to come down. Estrogen's going up. I can see him poking out now.
Level natural bodybuilders. These were guys with pro cards in natural bodybuilding in that era who probably weren't on gear. If they were very conservative. They represented the pinnacle of natural, drug-free bodybuilders with great training who were winning and had pro cards and were going to nationals. And they found that none of them had a fat-free mass index over 25. So I don't care what any...
Well, because back then they weren't even training to have a fat-free mass over 25 or whatever. I don't know, whatever, dude. They were just regular people. Man, whatever, man. That's when the aesthetic thing came in. They're trying to compete with steroid people now. The aesthetic look, it's low body fat, okay?
One says about genetics or hard work. You're telling me that 25 years ago that the top natural bodybuilders in the world who were training their butts off, who had pro cards and were national level competitors and champions.
I don't know when was this? When were these natural people competing? Are you talking about like the 1920s?
That if none of those guys, when they were below 10% body fat, had a fat-free mass index of 25 plus, not one of them, you're telling me that all of a sudden it's going to be really common out of nowhere today? Telling me there wasn't a good enough gene pool or that the best weren't training hard enough? Yeah, nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. Complete and utter rubbish. Those same studies determined the fat-free mass index of the average steroid user was 23.5.
Yes, natural people really walking around. They're not walking around really very low body fat, but that could be very bad for you having such a low body fat, because your fat, your skin, your fat is an organ, bro. Okay, and it produces hormones. You'll be screwed if it gets too low. It can be actually. I don't know. You could end up dying.
They sampled a bunch of steroid users, tested their body fat, weight, ran the stats. The average steroid user, 23.5 fat-free mass index. Well, how come these same people want to cite studies? Well, there's studies showing that you gain more muscle on drugs.
I think if you get down to 9%, that's already scary at 9%, dude, because it could be harmful to your health. Yeah.
Even if you don't lift than a person who works out, who's natural. We have some studies showing that. So if that's the case, then why do these guys only have a 23.5? That's not possible. Why would they, if gear lets you just get big without training, why are these guys still on average smaller than the best naturals, the very best? Well, because those very best were training really hard and had good genetics. I'll go so far as to say that...
I don't know what he's talking about, man. Okay, whatever.
That close to 25 fat-free mass index limit is for the genetically gifted. And that's the thing where I point out.
You don't have to be genetically gifted to have such low body fat. You could just starve yourself and you'll have low body fat, okay?
No, people have it wrong. They're misunderstanding those numbers. That limit came from studying the best. Granted, it was a smaller gene pool than you have today, but that was the elite. That was the people with good genes.
Right.
You understand that? That was studying the genetically gifted who had been training hard for 10 years. And they're all coming back with a 24 and a half fat-free mass index as national level champions. That is your genetically gifted group. Normal people don't reach a 24 and a half. With drug-free, you're not going to do it. So that's the problem, is that people have been sold a false reality. Now it's all these people, well, okay, this guy's maybe a bit bigger than that by 10 pounds of muscle, 15 pounds of muscle, but he must have better genetics. Really, you found 57 of these guys already with 26 fat-free mass indexes, 27s, who all just happen to have way better genetics than the genetic elite from that last era. The best of the best of the best, the national level champions with pro.
There's people that have nice physiques. I know some people that have nice physiques. They're tall and slim, and I know that they have good symmetry, low body fat. I knew some young people like that. Yeah, they're lucky, and they were good looking. On top of it, they were really lucky. Yeah.
Words. You just happen to have found 57 of them last week? Or could it just be they're all lying? When again, the average steroid user, 23 and a half. Put that in context. When people start throwing around fat-free mass index numbers and you calculate them. No, a 25 isn't suspect. It's not oh man, he might be on gear. 25 fat-free mass index, if you're a gambling man, it would be a safe bet. Not a maybe, it's almost certainly 1,000,000 to 1. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.
I don't know, man, if that was informative, but okay. I'll see you in the next one. Tell us what you think about that. Like, subscribe, support the channel. Yeah. I don't know, man. Social media has perverted what a natural bodybuilder is supposed to look like. But yeah, it's just like that. What can you do? We live in this world now. It's definitely not a drug-free world. See you in the next one, Joe.